Hey buddy, Crow back again, and it's been quite a while since Zen Studios released a new table pack for Pinball FX3. They released the last table pack way back on May 28th, and now 5 months later, just in time for Halloween, they've released the Universal Monsters table pack, which includes the Creature from the Black Lagoon and Monster Bash together in a bundle for $9.99. Now, before I go any further, I need to mention that Zen Studios did provide me with a copy of this table pack, so I did not spend any money on it. But the question is, should you spend money on it if you don't have it already? After all, previous Williams Pinball table bundles were $9.99 as well. But while those bundles had 3 tables each, this bundle has 2. Presumably it's because it's to offset the cost of the additional Universal license that would be necessary to put on these tables, but I don't really know if there's been any official word on that. This may likely be the case because this is not Volume 5, but rather an officially titled Universal Monsters pack. So it may be a deal where tables with special licenses get their own special bundles in the future. So the tables in this table pack have the same bells and whistles that you've seen from previous table packs, such as the 3 challenges, the power-ups with the Zen physics, the more realistic table physics playable in arcade or tournament modes, and it also includes the new flipper physics that were introduced in table pack 4, and the ability to turn enhancements on or off, which I will talk about for each table. So let's just start with Creature from the Black Lagoon, since it is the older of the 2 tables. Creature from the Black Lagoon was released by Bally in December of 1992. It was designed by John Trudeau, and 7,841 of these machines were produced. Now this table kind of has a dual theme going on. The first is that it takes place in a drive-in movie theater in the 1950s that happens to be featuring the movie Creature from the Black Lagoon. All of the action on the table revolves around the drive-in, but once the film starts, you'll switch to the movie itself and have to find the gill man and rescue the girl. The main feature on this table is the holographic Gillman that appears in the center of the playfield, and while the graphics in this version are excellent, I think the graphics they've done for the Gillman as a hologram may be too good, as he's really well defined, and I don't think it actually looks that good in real life without some modding. But hey, I still like it, and for this being the digital version, I might actually prefer it this way. There are also a ton of ramp paths on this table, and it could be a little daunting for beginners to figure out what to shoot on this table because of it. But Zen did a good job on the ramp transparencies, especially the big path that leads to the whirlpool by the right flipper. When it starts flashing, it looks fantastic. The table itself plays great, but there are actually 2 downsides I've found to this with the virtual version of the game, and both are related to camera angles. The first complaint is that it's pretty hard to see the rollovers at the top of the table with most camera angles. It can be pretty annoying not to be able to see which of the paid rollovers are lit, because getting them all lit is not just for a bonus multiplier, but because it awards the letter L in film, which is needed to start the film, and multi-ball, which is kind of the whole point of the table. The other complaint is that a couple of the camera views, which scroll up and down the table, do not adjust the camera fast enough to focus back on the flippers when it's necessary. This table does like to feed balls to the flippers rather quickly, and it could catch you off guard if you're not prepared. But in an instance where you spell film and lock the ball, you're then able to launch a second ball. And if you do so and the ball hits the rollovers, the camera is focused at the top of the screen while the original ball is fed back to the flippers. Only the camera doesn't pull back quickly enough in time, and you might lose the ball before you even knew it was on the flipper. Now granted, it's only a problem with a couple of the camera views, but it wouldn't be a problem at all if the camera would pull back earlier before the ball is actually released. But let's do a little comparison of what this version is like compared to the Pinball Arcade version. Alright, so here we have the Pinball Arcade version on the left and the Pinball FX3 version on the right. The camera angles aren't really exactly the same. I couldn't get them to match up. But this gives you a pretty good idea of how each version compares with one another. The Pinball FX3 version is a much better depth of color, as it were. I mean, the Pinball Arcade version is brighter, but that's because I left the brightness at its default, which was 50% room and 50% bulb. And as a result, I mean, it is brighter. It may seem a little bit colorful, but if you look at some of the colors, they seemed really washed out in the Pinball Arcade version, especially on the apron, the Gillman's hands. They definitely look a lot greener in the Pinball FX3 version on the right. And the other thing worth taking a look at are the ramps, the clear plastic ramps and the whirlpool and everything. I honestly think both versions don't look bad, but the Pinball FX3 version does look a lot better. But what I really want a good look at and compare is the holographic Gillman in both versions. So here's the holographic Gillman in Pinball Arcade and Pinball FX3 side by side, and there's quite a difference here. At first glance, if you didn't really know what you were looking at, you would think that the Pinball FX3 version, yeah, it looks a lot better. Yeah, obviously. But here's the thing, and you guys could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Pinball Arcade version on the left is how it actually looks in real life, or rather more like how it looks in real life. I think it actually looks better in real life, but I had to double check on YouTube at some videos of it, and it looks more like the Pinball Arcade version than it does the Pinball FX3 version, even though the Pinball FX3 version looks a lot better. Now, this is a digital version, and if I given the choice, I'm glad they kind of went and improved it, but if you were to compare it with real life, I think that you'd find that the Pinball Arcade version may be closer. All right, so what about enhancements? There's the typical extra sidewall art and the extra details on the apron, and in this case, it's some 3D glasses. But the main attraction here is the Gillman, who is now a fully 3D model. The Lagoon he's in now has air bubbles, which are constantly in motion, and occasionally you'll see the Gillman swim by. When film is started, he'll swim up and bump his head on the glass, which I found to be a little nice touch. But when you find the creature, he'll come out of the lagoon and walk around on the table. The balls won't be affected by him, but I can see where some people might be distracted by it. Hilariously, when you lose a ball in multi-ball mode, you can see him swimming away with it, and at the end of every ball, he'll swim up to the edge of the lagoon as if to be taunting you. The Gillman is such a big enhancement that it may be easy to miss the other little enhancements, like the hearts that appear when Kiss is completed, the open and close sign on the snack bar, and the van that blocks the movie during the Move Your Car mode, which will drive around a bit and take on explosions during that mode. The minor downside to the van is that it's another obstacle which can block your view of the paid lanes. But one minor upside is that with the enhancements turned on, each lit paid lane will have a coin above it, making it a little easier to tell which lanes have been lit. Now, personally, I didn't used to be a fan of this table, and that's mostly from playing the Pinball Arcade version, as I rarely got to play this table in real life. But over the years, I've started to like this table more and more, and this new version in Pinball FX3 has got me really liking this table. I mean, it's a challenge, all right, but it's really fun when you start to understand the mechanics. And it's got one of my favorite modes, which is not because it's challenging or anything, but I just think it's hilarious that every time you make the shot, everyone yells, "Move your car!" And the guy attacks the van with weapons in increasing firepower, and yet nothing damages the car, and at the end of the mode, it just drives away. So what about Monster Bash? Well, Monster Bash was released by Williams in July of 1998. It was designed by George Gomez, and 3,361 of these machines were produced. The Chicago Gaming Company currently has been producing Monster Bash remakes with modern technology and minor lighting tweaks and upgrades. Now, this table is just all about the Universal monsters getting together in a band and rocking out. It's as simple as that. The Gillman is on saxophone, the Bride of Frankenstein is on vocals, Frankenstein is on keyboard, the Mummy is on bass, the Wolfman is on drums, and Dracula is on guitar. This is a table I think a lot of people enjoy because of the fun, fast gameplay and the humor that goes along with it. There are a lot of toys on this table because every monster is represented. The Gillman has a section off to the left that's very reminiscent of the Creature from the Black Lagoon table, as he is a holographic image that appears from under the table. Frankenstein is presented on a movable slab that becomes a bashable toy during multi-ball. Dr. Frankenstein is also present, along with Igor to assist. And the Bride of Frankenstein is hanging out in the back, and her head will jump up at certain times. The Mummy is also in the back with his sarcophagus, which will open up whenever he wakes up. And Dracula will emerge from his coffin and cycle halfway around the table as another bash toy. That only leaves the Wolfman, who was relegated to a flat static image on the back of the machine. Poor Wolfman. This table does suffer just a little bit from not having a camera angle really good enough to see the rollovers at the top, but it's not as big of a deal as it is in Creature from the Black Lagoon, because those rollovers aren't used to progress any modes, they're just used for bonus multipliers. But that's really the only complaint I have with this table. So let's compare this with what was in Pinball Arcade. So again, we have the comparison of Pinball Arcade version on the left and the new Pinball FX3 version on the right. And the Pinball Arcade version is just a bit brighter. Actually, it's very much brighter, but I left it on default, which was 50% lighting in the room and 50% bulb. You could turn that down if you wanted to. But what I really noticed, again, is on the apron where the colors are all washed out. You can see the blood. I mean, it's really red in the Pinball FX3 version, and yet it is so washed out, it's unbelievable in the Pinball Arcade version. So this is just to give you a good idea, side-by-side comparison of what was in Pinball Arcade versus what we have now in Pinball FX3. And I know that I might get a comment saying, because I've gotten this comment in the past, hey, it's kind of pointless to compare these two, but it's just interesting, you know what I mean, to compare what was in Pinball Arcade with Pinball FX3. Again, the physics are completely different. You can kind of see that, and you probably saw that in the Creature version as well. But again, it's just something I find curious. I mean, it's not like you could buy the Pinball Arcade version anymore since it was taken down. But if you want to play this table, I mean, clearly, I think the vastly superior version is the Pinball FX3 version in both the quality of the graphics and physics. And let's move on to enhancements. So with the enhancements turned on, what do we get apart from the new sidewall art and the instrument models on the apron? Well, Zen Studios goes above and beyond by creating and animating a 3D model for every monster on the table. The Gillman, Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, Igor, Bride of Frankenstein, the Mummy, Dracula, and even the Wolfman, who didn't even have a figure in the original table, have all been fully animated and makes the table look much more alive, as it were, than it did before. The creatures really don't move from the locations they would normally be at, so you're not going to get any sort of visual interference from them when tracking the ball as you might from other enhancements in other tables. Other graphical enhancements include animated spiders by the slingshots, some sparks of electricity on the machine that gives life to Frankenstein, and some comic book style sound effect images whenever the mosh pit is shot. These enhancements are really solid, and they do an excellent job of being impressive without being distracting from the gameplay. Now, I've played this table a few times in real life, and I've always quite enjoyed it. And it's actually one of the more popular tables, as it's currently in the top 10 rated solid-state tables on the Internet Pinball database. Galloping Ghost Pinball in Brookfield, Illinois, has the Chicago gaming version of this, and when I stop in, I always play it, and I'm always reminded that this table is harder in real life than I think it is. And when I played this version, I got the same exact feeling, and I actually had to play it for a while before I started getting accustomed to this table with the updated physics. And it winds up being immensely satisfying when you accomplish tasks because of it. Now, this table pack as a whole is very good. A lot of effort went into creating these two tables, and it shows. Yes, you're only getting two tables for the same price that you were previously getting three, but I've watched others play this game in their own streams, and a lot of them will say that this is their favorite table pack so far, and I really can't argue with them. The tables are fun and the physics are great, and there's so much attention put into detail in these tables in both the standard and enhanced modes that I think they're well worth the price. And yes, both of these tables were once available in Pinball Arcade, and you may not want to buy these tables again in Pinball FX3 just because of that. And I can understand your point of view, but I personally don't think I could go back to playing these tables in Pinball Arcade since it's such a huge upgrade in graphics and physics. That's really all there is from me. This is just an excellent pinball recreation overall, and even if you're just a little bit curious, I'll say try it out. And that's it. If you've made it this far and you've liked the video, I would recommend liking the video, and if you're not yet subscribed, I would recommend subscribing. It's got plenty of videos just like this, and there will be more to come. I would also recommend checking out my Twitch channel, Crow Pinball, as I've been more active over there as well, including playing this table pack before it was even released. So there you go. See y'all next time.